The ultimate B2B paid media strategy. Welcome back to a fresh episode of Breaking B2B.com. I'm your host, Sam Dunning. If you haven't yet, why not join thousands of B2B legends enjoying my weird newsletter for unusual B2B marketing tips, strategies, SEO ideas and case studies, as well as fresh podcast releases. Head over to breakingb2b.com and hit that newsletter tab. So join me today. I've got Silvio Perez. Silvio's the founder over at AdConversion. Silvio, welcome to the show, sir. How are we?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me, Sam. Pumped to be here.
Legend. No worries at all. Looking forward to the chat. So we're going to be diving into paid media and how B2B marketers, B2B founders tuning in can get to grips with it 2025 and beyond. We're going into things like what makes a solid B2B paid media strategy, some of the mistakes you're seeing dealing with B2B and SaaS brands day in, day out on their paid media, what you should look to prioritize, how you can measure success and scale this out, a little bit about tech stack and more. So with that said, let's start with a nice open-ended one. What are you seeing when it comes to a solid strategy? What's the difference between kind of absolutely terrible kind of setup and what makes an absolutely killer one?
So the biggest thing is like having some sort of strategy in the first place, like some sort of thought process of how are we actually connecting everything together, from the campaigns we're running on Google to LinkedIn, and then how are we then corresponding that to some sort of reporting and measurement and tracking to just really understand like what are we doing here in the first place. I would say that is the first and most important thing, is making sure that you have some sort of documented approach. Strategy is nothing more than a plan. So what is your plan? How are you going to actually approach the different ads and campaigns that you're going to run? In terms of more nuanced specifics, I think for B2B and SaaS specifically, having a full funnel strategy and framework that you can do your campaign planning off of is much more imperative and like impactful than a traditional model like tofu, mofu, bofu that only really focuses on awareness, consideration, and capture. So the model that we propose and that we use in our agency and that I teach people in the academy in our Building a Paid Media Program course is the 5 stages model, which basically is all about breaking your campaigns into 5 different buckets that then correspond to different stages of the buyer's journey. So the first one is create. Create is all around building brand affinity and trust. So how can you build brand affinity and trust in a meaningful way, push your strategic narrative, draw the dotted line from your product and their pain points to your brand. And then capture is all around now, how can you convert interest from in-market buyers? Accelerate is all around how do you move deals faster to close? Revive is all about bringing lost deals back into the fold. And then expand is about driving more revenue from existing customers. So when you think about your strategy from the 5 stages model, it just from that one frame, it already opens up your mind to so many more possibilities and opportunities for you in terms of where campaigns could be created and ads can have a potential impact on your business. So I would say in terms of a strategy, number 1, have a plan. Some plan is better than no plan. And in that plan, make sure you're taking into consideration where the user is in their buyer's journey. What are the KPIs of success for that specific stage? So what is the leading KPI? What's the lagging KPI? What's the audience going to be looking like in terms of actually putting together that plan? Who are you going to be going after? How are you going to reach them on these different channels? What are the channels? And then finally is the offer itself. What are you going to be giving them on the other side of the ad that they're clicking on? I feel like that could be a whole podcast just alone, like breaking that down, but that's a high level.
Are you tired of competitors ranking above you on Google, stealing traffic, leads, and mind share from dream clients every time they're searching for your services or offers on Google? At Breaking B2B, we fix that with our unusual approach to SEO, content marketing, and websites. We craft B2B SEO strategies and websites for revenue, not vanity. Head over to breakingb2b.com to check our results, pricing, or to book a call with me. We've got a lot to cover, but let's try and dive into that. And can you recap those 5 points the full funnel strategy. I think you said create, capture, accelerate, expand, but I think I've missed one.
Yep. Create, capture, accelerate, revive, and expand.
Revive.
So
Got
just
it.
quick recap: create brand affinity and trust, capture, convert interest from in-market buyers, accelerate, move deals faster, revive, bring them back, expand, drive more revenue from existing customers.
Got it. Nice one. And then from there, you mentioned a bunch of points. So bearing in mind that full funnel approach around your targeting, who you want to target, what you want to do with the ad campaigns, and how you can kind of build out that strategy. So can you dive a bit more into that side of things?
Yeah. So step number one is, what is the goal? Like, what are you trying? Why are you running ads in the first place? So you always have to start from your constraints in that perspective, from leadership. So leadership came to you, or if you're the CEO or founder, you've given yourself a goal. So what is that? Let's just use a hypothetical. I'll use AdConversion as an example. So we teach B2B marketers how to scale ads with free courses taught by different practitioners. Right now, we're actually in the process of launching our first ad campaigns, which we're super thrilled about. And for me, I was like, okay, my goal is, I'm a new startup. I don't have a lot of cash. I want to drive as many registrations, new student signups possible in the lowest cost, and also be able to drive a lot of brand awareness so we can make AdConversion more known in terms of the market. So my goal is, just by that alone, and the way I frame that statement, I already know that I am going to be focusing on capture and create in relation to those 5 stages. Nothing that I just said right there said, hey, I've got a lot of existing students and I want to activate them into our paid community, or I want to take existing community students and put them in our referral program and expand and drive more revenue through an expansion motion. None of that, right? Or in this case, because I'm more product led and not sales led, instead of accelerate, it would be activate. You would just change it. So now the goal is not to move deals faster, it's to activate free users into paid users. So that would be the motion there. So anyways, in my case, in that example, I know I'm focusing on create and capture. Step 1, check. So now step 2 is, where am I going to reach my ideal customers? So depending on how much budget you have, budget is just going to dictate the amount of options you have available. Less budget, less options; more budget, more options. So
Sure.
I've got a really small budget. It's just $2K a month to start. So I got a lot of options in terms of, and in my case, I'm going after marketers. So they're everywhere. So it's like all these channels are a potentiality, which is a blessing, but also a curse. So for me, I have to just like triple down on one channel to start. Okay, I've only got 2K, so I've got to go all in on one channel to begin. What's that channel going to be? In my case, I actually just did a poll to our community members, and I said, hey guys, we're going to scale a channel from scratch. Where do you want us to advertise? And I gave them options. For you and your business, I wouldn't recommend that, because there's certain channels that are just going to work better. So in my case, I'm just kind of doing what the popularity wants. But for you, where is the ideal channel, like that, with the most confidence you can reach your ideal buyer and you can get in front of them in a cost-effective way? So for most B2B brands, that means LinkedIn. You're kind of forced to start there because you can get in front of them and then you'll expand. In our case, it's actually going to be YouTube, and we'll be running YouTube ads to get in front of our dream buyer. So now once you're clear on the channel, then you need to figure out, okay, how am I actually going to measure success? Like, what does a leading KPI look like and a lagging KPI? So a leading KPI is some sort of feedback that you can get within a 7 to 14-day period. So you can get feedback really quickly. So depending on your situation, that might look different. So for us with the site, with YouTube ads, it's going to be monitoring our click-through rate, our view rate, and then monitoring how many people who come from the ads actually go and visit our sign-up page from the homepage that we'll be driving them towards. So those are like early indicators of a leading signal. And then our lagging KPI is going to be actually new student signups. So how many people actually signed up? And then how many of those people that signed up actually went through our onboarding? So they're an onboarded sign up. So that'll be our lagging signals. So then once you're clear on how you're going to measure it, the next step is actually figuring out the audience component. So what types of targeting you're going to be using? So if you have a buyer persona, this is where this is really helpful. What you want to do is you want to take your buyer persona and now you want to convert it into what I call an ad persona. And an ad persona is exactly the same thing, except now you're going to list out exactly how you're going to reach that buyer persona given the available options in that channel. So for us on YouTube, that's going to look like remarketing audiences. That's going to look like a customer list to start. In the future, that's going to be contextual keywords and then custom segments. And then lastly, once you're clear on that, is what are you going to actually offer them? So in our case, it's going to be our Google Ads courses, our LinkedIn courses, and then we're going to just try promoting the academy as a whole. So those are the 3 different angles we're going to touch on. I know I went through all that super fast, so I hope it landed.
No, that's a lot. That's awesome. That's a lot of info, and that's going to be super useful for folks tuning in. So to recap, step 1 is basically choosing the goal from the framework that you mentioned earlier. So create, capture, accelerate, revive, and expand, and choose which of those are going to be relevant to, I guess, like you said, depending on the motion of your business, whether it's kind of a product-led approach, a sales-led approach, or something different, depending on your offer, your service, or your product. And then who. So in your case, it sounds like you went to your community and basically asked them where they would most likely to, I guess, be receptive to ads.
Not even, it was worse than that. It was like, hey guys, we've got 6 channels we're thinking about advertising on. Like, which one are you most curious to see how somebody scales it from scratch? And
I see.
So it was just like a popularity contest on like what they wanted to see. So we're kind of coming out at a deficit because YouTube is actually a much harder channel to make work than like Meta or even LinkedIn, but we got this.
No, I agree. YouTube is hard to crack, but then at the same time, isn't the ad or the ad budgets and spend slightly less compared to others? Is that still the case?
It's much cheaper, yeah, 100%. And then you're only charged if somebody watches 30 seconds of your video, which is awesome. So like the amount of branding that you can do is incredible.
Nice, cool. And then I suppose on that point, to dive a bit deeper into who, is there any tips you'd advise for folks that maybe don't have access to customer pool or community quite as easily as perhaps we do, on how they can tap into what might be relevant for where their prospects are going to be hanging out?
Yeah, so the first thing I would say is to, if you're in this situation where you don't know where your prospects hang out online, then that means you're probably like at the very, very early stages of getting your startup off the ground. And what I would do is I would study your competitors that are getting in front of your ICP, or relevant brands in other industries that are also getting in front of your ICP. Like, where are they most active? Like, which social media profiles and platforms are they actively trying to grow? There's probably some positive correlation there. Hey, they're active on LinkedIn and they're constantly posting. They're actually trying to grow their profile here. Maybe that's because they're actually getting business because their ICP is here. You could even take it a step further if you got a lot of time on your hands and look at the types of people reacting to their posts. And you can see, especially if it's LinkedIn, it's even easier. Hey, are these the right kind of folks depending on my product or service? That's ways for you to validate this. And then lastly is, if you don't have the data yourself, you could go to third-party data providers, and then you can basically export a list. And then you can take that list and then you can upload that list as a customer list into these different platforms. And then they'll give you insights on the people within those lists. So like, for example, with Facebook ads, and then you can start to get some ideas of like, can I reach these people? Like, are they the right fit, et cetera. So even if you don't have that data yourself, you could go buy it and then leverage it as a starting point.
Nice. Yeah, makes sense. And then channel, I know you said from a B2B's perspective, LinkedIn probably makes the most sense. No mention of Google, but is that because we're trying to create awareness around the problems we solve rather than capture direct market demand? Or
yeah, so if we're talking about capture and the capture stage, then 100% that's where Google reigns supreme. Create, you can, but it's just not as easy, and it's not the strength of the channel, because even like within Google Ads, you can run content campaigns. So content campaigns are great to support your SEO efforts. So it's essentially whatever that keyword is that your SEO team is trying to rank for organically, but it's going to take 3-6 months, whatever it might be, to get there. You can, in the meantime, you can just buy that keyword and pay to show up when somebody is searching that query, and then drive them to that piece of content that you're trying to rank for organically. But even that, it's like, to reach net new people, it can be a challenge. So that's typically why you see Google more so in the capture stage. But you could technically, if your strategy is like content and you've taken a different approach and you're really trying to focus on that affinity and trust, you could bucket it in the create stage. And that's actually a good point. It's like, at the end of the day, it's not what you do, but it's how you do it. And by having a framework, you can start to think about how you're going to break the rules and then reconstruct them based on your unique situation.
Yeah, and I feel like another thing we should talk about is, you mentioned in your case, which is a nice example, and I'm probably at a similar stage. Like, we both are quite early stage businesses, myself with Breaking B2B, yourself with AdConversion. We don't have a ton to dump into ads each and every month like some of our giant competitors, especially in the B2B marketing world. So how should B2B marketing folks or founders that are probably in similar spots, especially small marketing teams of 2 or 3 in-house that have maybe just been given a few grand a month to do all their marketing, like, any tips for them so they can think kind of, I've got, I don't know, 3 to 5K to
for
to hit the
sure.
ads. Like, how can I make sure that this cash is working as hard for me as possible based on where we're at?
Step number 1 is amplify the efforts in which you're already doing. So if you have no money, that means you usually have time. So if you don't have the money for ad budget, that's probably means you're reinvesting in content, trying to get that flywheel going organically. And you already know that's working to a certain extent, hopefully, and you're getting positive signals. So the easiest next best step is you want to amplify your organic efforts. So what that looks like in practice is you're already reaching net new people through organic. Make sure you continue to stay in front of them with ads. So that's retargeting. Retargeting is going to allow you now. So when somebody goes to your website or they interact with your post, you retarget them with more content that you've already created that they would probably like and find valuable. And then even better, if you can also sprinkle in some social proof. So now they're hearing from other people saying how great you are. And then you can even make some direct offers, asking them to take a demo or sign up for a product, whatever your thing might be. But remarketing is fantastic because it doesn't require a lot of budget. And if you're just starting out, that means you don't have a big remarketing audience in the first place, which means you could spend like $30 a day. And in the eyes of the people, the 300, 500, 1,000 people in that very small audience, they're going to see you as like the biggest thing in the world. But in reality, you're just really big to a very small group of people. And that's like a really easy next step. And especially in B2B, staying top of mind is half the battle. Like, it's crazy. Like, I have a client that's in the government space and they have a 36-month sales cycle, 36 months. So it's like, just staying in the consideration set is literally more than the battle. So just retargeting is like an easy way for you to do that. That's, I would say, start there. The next place where you want to go is now you want to go on the hunt. So now you want to do some create campaigns. You want to do some prospecting. So this is where you can take your best content that you already know performs well organically, and now take that content and push it out to this net new audience, the people that have not stepped into your universe. So in practice, like that campaign, you would have exclusions of anyone that's part of your marketing audiences. And you only want to reach like the cold of the cold, right? Like the new of the new. Like, they don't know you exist. They probably don't even know they have a problem in the first place. So you should cater your message accordingly. And now what you're doing is you're stacking on your success and your wins versus, hey, I'm doing this one thing here on the organic side, and now I'm doing this completely different thing on the ad side, and it has no integration with anything else that I'm doing. And if you do that, what happens with most brands is you continue to operate in that frame and you end up with a bunch of different siloed variations and functions throughout your business. So this is where you, from the very beginning, you can start to stack on what you do versus constantly having to build new in different areas.
Love it. Love it. So maybe we can give quite a tangible example, because myself, we get a decent amount of inbound from LinkedIn organic, but I've never really tried thought leader ads. So my plan from basically December, like the time of recording, we're November 2024. So from December in 2025 onwards, I'm planning to do a mix of some of the top of funnel content, bottom of funnel content that drives inquiries for us at Breaking B2B, and amplify that with paid. And we'll be in a similar spot. We'll be like, I don't know, $1 to $2K ad spend per month, roughly. But I suppose my query, and this might be relevant for some folks as well, is like, how much do you think of that I should go to retargeting folks that have potentially hot prospects that have been on the site, as opposed to perhaps making a small pool of net new dream accounts that fit our ideal client profile list and serving them kind of?
It's a great question. First thing is just build the audience in LinkedIn ads. once you just build the audience in LinkedIn ads, it's going to give you a much better understanding of what is real versus what's theory. So by just creating the audiences, you'll already see how big it is. So like, let's say you create the audience and then you're like organically, you're probably getting some good hits. But if you haven't created those remarketing audiences yet on LinkedIn, then it's only now moving forward that is being counted. It's not retroactive. So you're kind of at a disadvantage there, which is always a pro tip for everyone. Like, even if you're not planning on running ads yet, build that audience as fast as humanly possible and install that pixel. So when you are ready, you already have this massive group of people, versus now, if you haven't done that, you have to wait, and kind of go through that period. So if you haven't done that, then I can already guarantee you're not going to be able to spend 80% on remarketing. But that would be the first step, is like, just build the audience, see how big it is. And then from there, you'll know, like, for example, if it's less than 3,000, you're barely going to crack 15, 25 bucks a day, maybe. So it's like, you're probably going to still have a lot of surplus left over for your prospecting efforts. But to make it simple, I would say put as much of that budget as you can on retargeting to begin. So for that 2K, 3K, whatever that budget is, once you start to actually launch the campaigns and you see, hey, I could spend the whole 2K on retargeting, then start there and then just do a better job on organic, getting more people into your system. And then in the future, once you get more opportunities, more revenue, you expand your budget. Now you can allocate some budget towards reaching net new folks. But retargeting, again, it's really the thing that's going to allow you to stay omnipresent. And then now, as you're continuing to create more content, it's just going to give you opportunities to just make sure that they actually saw it, versus just be benevolent to the LinkedIn ads algorithm and hope they saw it, right? This will guarantee that they actually do.
Yeah. And I think this is timely advice. This is timely, sound advice, especially as LinkedIn organic, as that is one of the main channels in B2B, being the biggest social network. It's getting tougher and tougher to get organic reach. It's certainly from my perspective anyway, compared to, say, a year ago, year and a half, 2 years ago.
One of the big mindset shifts for people is just understand that, like, all ads is it's guaranteed distribution. That's it. Ads are guaranteed distribution. You want to guarantee someone sees something, you could go to LinkedIn, you can give them some money, and in exchange, they'll give you that exposure. And at the end of the day, all of these platforms are the same. Just look at TikTok, look at Instagram back in the day. They start off giving you insane amount of reach. They invite all the creators to the platform. They incentivize growth. They give you virality. Then what happens is they start to monetize. They roll out ads. They start to dwindle down the amount of reach. Eventually, they start to increase the amount of placements in their platform. They dwindle down organic reach even more. So ultimately, the one thing you can count on is these platforms want your money, and they will always be willing to take your money in exchange for distribution. So if you can master ads and get really good at leveraging this organic or this guaranteed distribution to your favor, then you'll always be in control of your business. Versus somebody else, they build their whole network, their whole business off organic. God forbid the algorithm changes next month, you're screwed. Versus if you know how to use ads and organic, you're like a force to be reckoned with.
Great summary, sir. Great summary. Right, let's get back into the strategy before I took a tangent on budget.
Yeah.
So we were talking about picking a channel, which we covered. Then the next stage you talked about was leading KPIs. So in your YouTube ads instance, you talk about click-through rates, views, and then folks going perhaps to your sign-up page. But I'm guessing if you're B2B SaaS or service, that might be like case study page or pricing pages, or viewing some of those high intent pages or the demo page or that kind of stuff, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. It'll vary, but the idea is, like, what the leading looks like for you and the lagging. So then, especially in B2B, if you're waiting on the lagging, like for some companies to get 10 demo requests a month, I mean, that's rough. So if you have to wait that long to get data to then optimize your ads, it's just not going to work out. So instead, by having that leading signal that you can get data within a 7 to 14 day period, then it's going to give you immediate feedback to be able to know, oh, should I pause this ad? Should I increase budget on this campaign? And make these necessary adjustments so that you can ultimately get to where you want to go.
Got it. Are there any, I guess, telltale signs that your ads are just not working how you'd hope them, and that you should look to make changes sharpish? And I guess also with that, part two of that question is kind of timeframes to measure those things.
Yeah. So The way I like to think about it is I always say like the best advertisers think like investors and they execute like scientists. So you want to have an investor's mindset when you run ads. So just like investors, right? Like they have rules on when they buy shares and when they sell. So, the stock price goes up, they sell. If it goes low, they buy. There's logic that grounds their decision making. And I think as performance marketers, media buyers, we should think the same way. So for us, we have some rules that we follow to help kind of ground our decision making and logic. So for one of them is what we call a non-performer rule. So if your ad spends 2 to 3x your allowable target, whatever that is for you, pause it. So for example, if I want to drive demo requests and I want to drive demos at $100 a demo, if my ad spends $200 to $300 max and it doesn't generate a demo, it gets shut off. There's no, oh, but I really like this ad. I spent a lot of time on it. It's so beautiful. You know what I mean? Like there's no bias. It works or it doesn't. It gets killed and you move on with your life and you go to the next iteration. So that's like one example of a rule to kind of ground your decision making. And like simple rules like this help you kind of get a little bit more logical. Now, is it the most statistically significant based on sample size and all this? No, but it's super practical and it will actually help move your experimentation process forward. Like there's so many people that are running the same ads for months. It's crazy. And once they start to move in this direction that I'm talking about, they'll realize like instantly how many of their ads are getting shut off. And then the volume of creative testing that you need to be doing in order to actually hit the numbers and the sweet spot of where they are at, especially with LinkedIn, because you're getting in front of the right person, assuming you have your targeting set up. And then if you're just not happy with the response you're getting, like the answer isn't then try a new audience. The answer is no, I need to become more compelling, which means test more ads.
I like it. I like the thought of setting a limit for what you're accepting as that conversion point, whether it's a demo, a sign up, a booked call, or something like that. Is that very easy to set up if you're serving folks like a mix of ads, say like informative or pain point based at the top of funnel, and then as you move down, serving them case studies, results, testimonials, and driving them to that next stage? Is that quite easy in theory to put together?
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. It's just a matter of like, number one, deciding what is my leading signal, what is my lagging signal, and then just figuring out your allowable cost per that thing. If you're just starting out and you have like no starting point, I would just say like, ask yourself like, what is your maximum pain threshold? So like, what is the most you're willing to accept to spend before saying, okay, I'm not willing to spend $1 more. And then, you can use that as a starting point. But yeah, you should 100% take like 5 minutes to just think through this. If you want to get a little bit more calculated with it, you can take your average deal size and you multiply it times your lead to close won rate. And then you can figure out your break even cost per lead. And then you can use that as a starting point. So for example, a few years ago when I was at Metadata, I remember we had this one client where they were getting demos for like $1,200 and they were really unhappy with it because they had another campaign that was getting demos for like $500. And they were comparing all of the campaigns against the 500 one. And that's not really fair because like not all campaigns will perform equally. And if you only relied on the 500 one, like the volume of demos would be much lower because you only have that one campaign and that one ad unit. Versus really what you want is you want like this collage of multiple campaigns working in your favor. They won't all be at the same level of effectiveness, but when you look at how they perform as a unit, it's much more volume and it's much more cost effective, if that makes sense. So by having the break even number, it's super helpful because in that instance, like their break even cost per lead was like $5,000 and they were getting demos for 500. And even that one campaign was getting demos for 1,200. So it's a great way to frame expectations. I was like, hey, wait a second. You can spend twice as much, 3 times as much, and still break even. And that's another point too, is like all of these platforms, prices will inevitably rise. Like it's inevitable. Like no matter what, even on the Google Ads side, if you optimize your quality score, you're setting cost caps, all of that is like delaying the inevitable. Prices will rise. And ultimately, like Dan Kennedy once said, is like, he who can spend the most to acquire a customer ultimately wins, which is very true. So if you want to become more aggressive and more competitive and outspend your competitors, you're going to have to get willing to accept like getting closer to that break even number, because that's what it's going to take, you know, when that day comes. So it's a good way to frame expectations, and also it can be used as a competitive advantage, because your competitors are freaking out about $500 cost per demos, and they're not willing to ramp up from a $10,000 to $20,000 budget, but you are, because you know the long-term economics of it, right? And you're willing to break even on the front end so you can profit on the back end.
I like it. Let me ask you this. Should you have a good basis of organic traffic initially to make paid media a sound investment?
I don't think so. Yeah, no, I don't think so. I think it's a matter of what you're trying to do and your confidence level with paid. Like, I've seen brands start from zero, no brand presence, no organic traffic. They had a really great offer. They were witty. They knew how to make good creatives, good ads. And then they just went straight to like cost-effective platforms like Meta, and they ran ads on Instagram and Facebook, and they crushed it. And they used that to get like their starting point, and they accelerated the speed to go to market really quickly. So if you have the chops and you have the budget and you're willing to make the investment, then I think investing in paid early can be great. However, if you don't have the budget, you don't have the skill set, then definitely you should start with organic and then kind of like dovetail into it in the future. Like for us at AdConversion, the reason we didn't start with ads straight away and we started with organic was because we didn't have the budget, you know, like if I had the, like only now I'm like, finally, you know, like we can run some freaking ads. But that was the constraint for us.
Yeah. And I appreciate the transparency. And like I said, we're in a similar boat, and I'm sure a lot of folks tuning in will be similar as well. So we've covered a lot of those points. We've covered audience earlier, and we've covered a bit about retargeting. We talked about the KPIs that you should be looking at. So I think the next point was the offer. So I think it'd be nice for you to share perhaps some frameworks, perhaps without getting platform specific, but some general best practices when it comes to putting an offer, whether it is more bottom of funnel, top funnel, or in the middle.
So the biggest thing with your offer is you want to make sure it's compelling. And just because it's free doesn't mean you don't have to sell it. I think that's a big thing. And us, for example, like we offer free courses by like legit people, and the quality is like exceptional. We film it in a studio, and I haven't learned this lesson more than anything with AdConversion, because even having free courses and all this stuff, like when I originally launched, I was like, man, I'm gonna make one LinkedIn post, everybody's gonna hear about this, and it's game over. We're gonna have like 1,000 students in a week. I couldn't be more wrong. Like, it's now that people don't believe you, like they're skeptical. They're like, well, if it's free, it's not really that good. Like, you know, there's all this, or, oh yeah, maybe it's that good, but I don't have the time. Like, there's so many things going against you. So just number one, understand, like, you're going to have to go to work, like making that offer compelling, and don't believe that just because you think it's an exceptional offer, other people actually understand that's an exceptional offer. So I would say start from that frame, number one. Then number two, once you understand that, then get creative. So how can you make a traditional offer more compelling? So if we're talking about SaaS, the offers are quite defined. Like a demo request is the primary offer. So now the question is, how can I make my demo request a much more compelling offer? One simple thing you can do is you can add some sort of bonus for taking the offer. So for example, you can give somebody some sort of resource for signing up for a demo. Like, it's an easy way to add additional value and make your offer stand out a little bit more. Or what you can do is you can have tiers of offers. So for example, like if somebody's really in the moment and there's a lot of pain, they'd be willing to sign up for a demo right away, but maybe they're not. And if you don't have a downsell in terms of like an additional offer you can give them, then you're going to lose them. So a downsell from a demo request could be, instead of joining live to get a demo, what if they just watched an on-demand like demo walkthrough? That could be a downsell that they can then opt into. Or if they're not ready for that, then what's the next best thing? So that's kind of like the way I like to frame it, is like, what's the next best thing? Like in terms of where they are now versus where they want to be. And then along that line, what are the offers that we can create? And then how can we make them super cool so that they can actually be willing to get like opt in and take advantage of them? And that's one of the biggest levers in paid today and moving forward, is offer optimization. Everyone's so obsessed about like bid strategies and audience functions and all of the like nuances of the campaign structure. And of course that stuff matters, but it's like table stakes. And the people that are really dominating in 2024 and 2025 moving forward are the ones that are obsessing about the experience they're creating for the user, from the ad to the landing page to the actual offer they're presenting. Because when you have those three things working for you, you could have the most shit campaign setup in the world and it's still going to work out pretty well.
I think that's not just good advice for ads, but good advice for business in general. Like as a business, I'm constantly trying to refine my offer, the main products we sell, from various standpoints. How easy are they to digest? Do they hit pain points? Are they competitive compared to our competitors? Are the pricing models clear and simple to understand? Is the time to value good? So just listening, like some of this stuff, like a lot of people slate 𝗥𝗲𝗹𝗁𝗲𝗀, but I think for his offer frameworks, they're actually solid in my opinion.
1000%.
Grasping that concept. Like so
I
many
learned
people
this.
shit talking.
My first business was a DJ business when I was in college.
Okay.
And I learned about offers from Dan Kennedy. That's who I learned from originally on the direct response side. And long story short, I went through like one of his workbooks and he talked about like creating an irresistible offer. He's like the OG. I'm sure Alex got inspiration from him, but he talked about the concept of irresistible offer. And he's like, you have to make it so good that like they can't say no. And with my DJ business and like going back to your original question, like, do brands need to start with organic? Like I didn't. Like I just started with ads and I was running Google ads. And my offer was, we show up on time or you don't pay. Because I realized like that was a huge pain point. People were scared that the DJ wouldn't show up for the venue, which is crazy. So I guaranteed against it. I'm like, if we don't show up, you don't pay. And just by doing that one thing and optimizing my offer, my ads converted like crazy. I will never forget my first lead that I got. It was a kid's Halloween party. I got the lead for $4. I mean, this was like years ago, so Google was much cheaper. And I got the lead for $4 and it converted into $650 cash for 4 hours of work on the weekend. Like I will never forget cashing that check in. Ever since that moment forward, like I've been obsessed with ads.
That's a great story.
So definitely like the offer is everything, because that's how you can go from being literally a group of college kids who are broke to rivaling other DJs in Miami where everyone is a freaking DJ, you know?
Have you got any tips for how folks can build a good offer, but test it's going to hit before they dump a load of cash into it? Like you said, we're all our worst enemies at some times and our ego can get the better of us. We think we've got an awesome offer that's amazing, that's going to pull dream clients in and be absolute gold dust. But then when we bring it to market, it might flop. We might only get 1 or 2 signups or calls or waste a load of cash. Any tips for testing our offer is going to hit well before we invest a load of ads into it?
Yeah, 1000%. So one really easy, so there's levels to offer testing. So like the first level is just doing click-through rate testing. So what you can do is you can create really simple ads, like quote-based ads. And in the quote, you make your offers. So you have your 3 different offers, let's say. So ad 1 has offer 1, ad 2, offer 2, ad 3, offer 3. And it's a very basic ad. I'm talking like solid color background and just like a quote in the middle. So it just prominates the offer statement. And then you get in front of your ICP, and then just based on the click-through rates of which ones they're interacting with the most, you then double down on. So that's some way to get early feedback. Oh, variation 2. And like, again, these ads look like shit. But the idea is like, you just want feedback. Like, what are people responding to in terms of like these offer statements I'm making, right? And then that's a really easy way for you to just run a really, really small budget test to see, oh, this one is resonating more. Let me double down on that. So that's like the first level. The second level is like actually creating some sort of product around these different offers. So like in an info product example, but I think SaaS brands could do this too. Although most people hearing me right now will never do this in SaaS, which I don't know why it works, is just create an ebook or a checklist or something like really simple where now you can get an opt-in. So now you're creating some friction in the process. And if like you're getting a lot of responses on an ebook or an opt-in, like your playbook, for example, right, which is like what you do for brands, if you would have started with that playbook first and you saw how well it got traction and then you built an agency around it, that would have been a way to validate that before building team and infrastructure, right? So that's like a way you can test it on a small scale and then kind of build everything else out on the back end.
Interesting. We had, I think it's the episode before this, we had a lady called Yulia who runs an ABM company. Well, they're actually a SaaS-based ABM tool called Enrich. But you know them?
Yeah.
So she had a great theory because she actually experimented with, everyone on LinkedIn basically slates that ebooks don't work or white paper ads downloads don't work. So she experimented with it and had tailored ads for those. I think it was part of a retargeting campaign to their ABM list. And then they offered them more of a useful asset. So it was a bit more tailored in the fact that the SDR would then a bit more co-create or make a custom version of an asset or an audit or an ebook that they'd spend 30 minutes creating. But they had some decent success. Like they booked a profitable amount of sales calls and demos from that. And it just frustrates me when LinkedIn's the main channel we're hanging out at, right? Like so many marketers seem to slate certain strategies, but I don't think they've actually thoroughly tested them, experimented with them themselves. They've tried it once, or their mate said it didn't work, therefore it definitely doesn't work.
Oh my God, yeah. I'm trying not to rant, but yeah, like 100%. The amount of people that are just talking out of their ass on LinkedIn is insane. One of the things I love about like on the agency side is we actually test. Like today we have 118 documented experiments on what's working, what's not, across like the most mundane little things. Like I'll give you one real example. Everyone shits on manual bidding on Google Ads. Like they're like, manual bidding is awful. You should never use it. Automated bidding is life. But there is one exception, and I can say this confidently because we've ran it already like across like 8 different accounts, and it's using manual bidding for branded search campaigns. It dominates. It does so well. Like in every test we've done across multiple industries, it has proven to be the way to go. And now it's one of our best practices. So there's like so many little things like that on small scales, big scales of like, I always tell my team, I'm like, everything is an opinion until you have data to back it up as a fact. So when I hear things on LinkedIn or someone says something, I'm like, oh, that's incredible. Like I'm going to store that idea and then I want to test against it so I can formulate my own understanding of it based on my experience and my industry and my nuance. Because at the end of the day, it's like what I said earlier, it's not what you do, but it's how you do it. If I'm driving ebook signups and I haven't created like a post follow-up experience, or the ebook itself is not valuable, yeah, it's probably not going to work. Like on the flip side, the way you should be thinking about, and I'm going on a tangent here, but like the way I like to think about leads and downloads on like ungated versus gated is every time you download a lead or you get a lead to sign up, the way I like to think about it is imagine that's a loan you just took out from the bank. Like I just went to the bank of LinkedIn and I took out a loan for $200 to acquire this lead. And now every day that loan is accruing interest. That lead is accruing interest. So when you start to think of it from that perspective, you realize it's about how you engage and nurture and the experience you create for that individual that just came into your atmosphere. It's not the ebook itself or the demo or the webinar. These are all just tools and how you indoctrinate someone into your brand.
Yeah, that's a nice analogy. That's a nice way to think of it. I suppose it's taking that mindset in B2B, isn't it? That it's more of an ecosystem and that most of us are selling quite expensive services, platforms, software, or tools. And there's a lot of thought. There's various folks in the buying committee. There's a lot of stuff that's going to come up in their day-to-day, and probably paying for your service, your offer, your tool is not their top priority.
Yeah.
So if we can find a way to break through the noise in whatever channel that is, kind of stay top of mind and prove that we are kind of a helpful, trustworthy, useful vendor that has their interests at heart. It's kind of those fundamentals, it sounds like.
Yeah, it's always an ecosystem. Even on the B2C side, nothing happens in isolation. Like the best and the top e-commerce brands also are creating ecosystems. The best e-commerce brands are investing in brand so that they can charge higher prices in very competitive spaces. At the end of the day, buying on any scale happens across multiple touch points, even in B2C where it's more direct and the amount of touch points is smaller. If you really want to win, you should be thinking, how can I create an experience at scale, an ecosystem at scale, that once somebody gets into this world, they don't want to leave.
Just want to finish up with your thoughts and recommendations around creative. We talked about it a little just now, which was a nice tip you gave around testing offer messaging to see which kind of resonates and gets the best response. What should we be thinking at from a high level if we're looking to test out creatives? And I'm sure we'll have marketers tuning in thinking, like, for example, on LinkedIn, do I go straight into thought leader ads and kind of push the stuff that's done best? Or do I go into video? Do I go into kind of imagery or text-based posts? Like what makes sense as a starting point, I suppose?
If we're talking LinkedIn, for sure, thought leader ads is the best place to start. It kind of gives you the best of all three, because with a thought leader post, you can use an image, you can use a video, so you're covered there, or it can just be text-based, so it has the most versatility. It's also responding the best in terms of performance right now from what we're seeing. And in your case specifically, Sam, it's the next best thing. You're already doing so much on your personal LinkedIn, like guaranteeing just taking that same post and distributing it as an ad is going to put you in a much better place strategically. So for most folks listening on the LinkedIn side, thought leader ads is kind of like the best of everything for create specifically. And then even for capture, you could still use a thought leader ad format. Now, maybe it's not you, it's a customer saying how great you are, and then they're linking to your page for you to sign up for a demo or get a trial or something like this. So thought leader ads for sure, I would focus on as like a really good ad format. Outside of that, video content is really powerful if you can scratch it. Like at the end of the day, you know, with create, the goal is to build brand affinity and trust. And there's nothing like video to actually hear someone, see them, look at their mannerisms. That builds affinity and trust faster than an image and a text post-based post will. So I would say thought leader ad, video. Then from there, I would say image. And then finally, it would just be like text, which are like the text ads, or even just like a straight up thought leader ad in the text format. And then getting a little bit more tactical outside of the ad formats is, which I think is a little bit more helpful, of like, okay, I've decided I'm going to use a video, or I decided I'm using an image. Now what, right? Like you launch the thing and you're just like that's the thing too. Like everyone stresses the launch. Like there's so many videos on YouTube of like how to launch this campaign and how to do this. And it's like, that's all anyone talks about. But it's like, okay, you launched it. Like now what do you do? Like, how do you make it better? And then how do you take it to the next level? Like, you know, that's where the real work comes in. And going back to like what I said in the beginning, like if you have your leading KPI, you have your lagging KPI, that now becomes your guide. So let's just use like a simple example. I'm going to use you, Sam, as an example. Okay, I've got my post. I boosted it as a thought leader ad. On that post, my goal is I want people to go and check out my playbook. So what I'm going to do is my leading KPI is going to be the click-through rate on this post, of like how many people actually click through to my actual landing page. So the amount of like landing page clicks and that click-through rate. That's the first one. And then the second one is going to be how many people actually went to the site and actually scrolled through and looked around and visited certain key pages. That'll be my second leading KPI. Then my lagging one is how many people actually signed up for the playbook in the first place. And then my other lagging KPI will be how many people actually reached out to me for a discovery call, right? So now that makes the decision-making much easier, because now I'm not just looking at like these random metrics in the ad manager and just being like, well, my dwell time is 3 seconds, so I think that's good. You know, like it's kind of like metrics without context isn't helpful, you know, and how it fits into your strategy is ultimately what guides the decision-making. And then in terms of like improving the actual ad itself and improving the formats of it, what we like to do is the 3 C's. So we always recommend first testing creative concepts. So wildly different creative concepts to begin. So in your case, you're starting from 0. I would test 3 very unique creative concepts. So like one might be a thought leader ad with a video. The other one might be a thought leader ad with a meme. The other one might be a thought leader ad with an image. And then you test these 3 different creative concepts, and then you see, hey, what works, what resonates, what's better. That'll usually drive a much greater lift in the short term versus testing the same image, 3 different variations with just different copy, which leads us to the next point, which is copy. Now that you've figured out the concept, let's say you notice like, hey, before and afters resonate really well with my audience. You can lean into that, and now you can test different variations of copy, short form versus long form, direct statement versus open hook, like all these different things, and you go down that rabbit hole. And then finally, if it's applicable, depending on the ad format, now you can test different colors. Hey, is green better than red? If I use these Figma file or Figma elements, does that make a better difference than this? And like all that minutia. but testing the concepts first and then the copy will drive a much better impact than, hey, if it's red or green.
Appreciate it. That's very tactical and very actionable steps. So with that, we've just about hit time. So it really was a masterclass, Silvio. I really appreciate you breaking these down into fundamentals and putting them in a simple format so myself and the rest of the audience can pick these up and put them into play for their ad campaign. So with that, please do tell us more about AdConversion, the best way for folks to learn more about your community, your agency, and the best way to get in touch.
Yeah, so if you guys want to connect with me, just reach out to me on LinkedIn, just search Silvio Perez, and then AdConversion is a digital advertising academy and agency. So we teach B2B marketers how to scale ads with free courses taught by different practitioners. So we've got courses on Google Ads, 101, 102, 103, beginner, intermediate, advanced, and they all build on each other. So first you learn how to launch, then you learn how to optimize, then you learn how to scale. We've got Google, we've got LinkedIn, we've got other courses there as well. And we've got 7 other courses that are still in production being finalized. So we have a bunch of content on the way. And like I said, it's free. So you sign up once and you get access to all of those. Then we also have a community, which is paid, where you can get started for 7 days for free. And then it's just $1 a day, where now you can ask questions, join masterminds, get access to like additional templates and tools, and just connect with other experts.
Legend. Appreciate the breakdown, sir. We'll put all of those links below. And thanks once again for sharing your wisdom.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Cheers, man. And as always, if you enjoyed today's episode, why not join the accompanying newsletter to join thousands of legends getting their unusual B2B marketing tips, insights, strategies, and podcast releases? Head over to breakingb2b.com and hit that newsletter tab. And with that, I want to thank you, the audience, for tuning in. We should catch you on the next one. Cheers.